Thank you. Good afternoon. So some of you know me as a workplace person, but over the last 4 years, I've sort of escaped the workplace a little bit into the city, into precincts, universities, stations. But today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about creating experiences at airports. So, most of you probably know airports quite well. I'd say some of you were in them yesterday or perhaps over the last week. And airports host some of life's most memorable experiences. So we've got all of those great reunions, the hellos and goodbyes, some joyous, we're going off on a holiday, perhaps we get that special upgrade, and some perhaps not so fabulous, the lost luggage, flight delays, long queues, etc. So I'm going to talk about how to create experiences, and I'm going to give you 5 things to consider that can actually apply to all sorts of asset types. So these are 5 things. Understand your audience, co-design with story, the whole journey, layer for change, and allow for surprise. So first up, understand your audience. If we want to humanise infrastructure, we really need to understand who we're designing for. Who is the experience for? And our audiences are pretty layered in any kind of place. So here we've got an example of Brisbane Airport, and this is for the new Brisbane terminal that we've been working on. So airports host a lot of diverse audience types. There are business travellers. Most of you probably have been in that category. Leisure travellers, some who need a bit more assistance, and a lot of people who actually don't travel at all. So in Brisbane, 1 in 100 Queensland employees work at the airport. So they are the largest employee. There are also meeters and greeters, so people who come and pick people up. There are lots of people who work there a long time, you know, they're aviation sort of natives, and in Brisbane there are generations of airport workers. We got to meet 4 generations of people in one family, which was amazing. And across these groups, there are sort of common values that we need to think about. You know, we all want care, we all want recognition and respect as we're travelling through. But some of them are also unique to the situation, and they can be expressed as mindsets. So, for example, you might be a business traveller one day, and all you want is efficiency, flow, perhaps some acknowledgement that you're a frequent flyer. But on another day, you might be going to the airport to send off your son or your daughter off on their first big trip. And you're really, really anxious, and perhaps she or he is massively excited. And so we've got to continually think about all of these moving dimensions and emotions and needs as we're sort of designing. And the way to understand that is to actually talk to the users. So understand what's getting in the way, what do they care about, how do we minimise the pain or amplify the joy. An example here is at Perth Airport, in the domestic terminal, 50% of travellers are fly-in, fly-out workers. Similarly, we spoke to FIFO workers in Brisbane who just said, we want to get in, we want to get out, we want to park our trucks in, you know, a really easy space, and we want it to be seamless. In Perth, when we spoke to FIFO workers, they said, when we leave, we want it to be easy. We still want to park our big trucks in the car park. We want to get a decent and well-packed lunch so it doesn't leak everywhere in our bags, because where they're going, they don't have time to pick up lunch. But when we come back, we want to be slow. We actually don't want to rush out of the airport. We want to stop. We want to have a beer with our mates, maybe, or a meal with our families. So that kind of shifts exactly what we want to provide in an airport. So how are we servicing our audience? The second thing is about co-designing with stories. So we are all storytellers, and the way to think about this is to invite people to come and tell their stories. So when we worked with Perth Airport, if you've ever been to Perth, it's quite efficient. It's a small airport, there's lots of flow, you can get on and off a plane pretty well, but there's pretty much no personality. You wouldn't know you're in Perth except for the view. And so we were tasked with creating a sense of place strategy for the Perth Airport. And so we said, how are we going to do this? We're going to invite all the people who care about Perth Airport to come and tell their stories here. So we invited ambassadors, Destination Perth, Tourism Western Australia, the staff, the retailers, the locals and First Peoples to come together to talk about the stories they wanted to tell. So this here is a story framework, and really what it is to kind of inspire a sense of place through storytelling that resonates with locals as being distinctly Perth or Western Australia, and introduces visitors into the city and the region that maybe they hadn't experienced before. So here, story is about local and regional identity, cultural heritage, memory and meaning for these people, and these provide a bit of a building block, a building block framework to the experiences that we actually want to bring to life. So what we did with these, and this is probably a whole nother presentation, but to actually think about how these experiences layered over infrastructure. So 3, the whole journey. Your experience at the airport does not begin when you walk through the gates into check-in. It begins at home. It begins when you're thinking about your trip. Perhaps you're on the website. Perhaps you're on a booking app. Perhaps you're just in a restaurant talking with friends about where you want to go next. And so we need to think about the whole journey from that first idea. So right from planning through to transport, how are we going to get there, into the arrival, check-in, perhaps there's a pause before you get into security and a pause after so you can collect your things and your thoughts. Maybe you go through immigration if you're going on an international trip. There's probably another pause after that, into the departures lounge where actually what we want to do is we want choice, okay? And then we go on our trip and we come all the way back right to a point of reflection. So we've got to think about all of those different touch points. Every step is considered as a whole, whether it's online, physical, whether it's a process, whether you're thinking about flow, or whether you're thinking about dwell. So these are all the sort of touch point designs that we can kind of bring to life in the terminal. The next one is about layering for change, and we want to think about airports always evolving, or experiences anywhere actually always evolving. So I'm going to go back to my DGW roots and quote Francis Duffy. So he talked about buildings aren't made out of glass, concrete and stone. They're made out of time, layers of time. And so here we look at designing with time. And Duffy inspired Stuart Brand around this pace layering sort of system, if you like. And it's about the relationships between components in a system that have different sort of change rates and different scales of size. So each layer is functionally different, but each influences the next, right? So slow layers stabilise, fast layers innovate. So borrowing from these sorts of concepts and the language of the theatre, we look at designing experiences in similar ways. So if we start with the background is about the experience of permanence. It's the architecture or the urban design principles. it's infrastructure, right? It's efficient, it's predictable, it brings coherence. It's also takes a lot of time and a lot of money to build, and it takes a lot of time and money to change. So we want to think about that as being quite a stable layer, and I'm going to call that the stage. The second layer that we can think about is the mid-ground. It's the interiors, it's the setting that changes over time. So it's furniture, it could be a new retail store, it could be lighting or sound. And so we can think about that as being a faster layer than background, but it still, requires a project, it still requires time and money. And right at the top, we have what we refer to as the foreground, or the story layer. It is the experience of dynamism. It's the live events. It's the hosting. Perhaps it's a technology app. It's dynamic and experiential, and you can change it all the time. And so if you think about these things in layers, you can create a whole lot of changing experiences or moments without actually interrupting your heavy costly infrastructure. So each layer informs the others, so we have to design them together, right? So we need to kind of brief for all channels here. And slow is really predictable, and fast learns. So the idea that we can evolve that foreground layer and then embed those lessons into the background or the mid-ground allows your system to be really dynamic and really resilient. And really the thing about airports that we do know is that they're always changing. It is always meanwhile. 5, allow for surprise. So when you talk to the guys at Changi Airport, arguably one of the best airport experiences in the world, they talk about things that you want to forget and things that you want to remember. So moments that you want to forget, long queues, delays, the sort of terrible person that, is very rude to you. And things that you want to remember, the delightful moments, the kind of cabin upgrade, or, something really great surprise. So how do we think about turning things that you want to forget into things that you might want to remember? And so we've got to anticipate these. At Brisbane Airport, we had a mantra. It was, don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, we need to design for the anticipated issues. So we always know there's going to be a flight delay. We always know that there's always going to be something going on. So how do we actually deal with that? And the second was be happy, which was about finding ways to elevate the experience. So in workplace, we might talk about activity-based working. Here, we think about activity-based waiting. So here are 4 examples from around the world. At Munich Airport, there is a high ropes course. It's in the public realm, and it activates the airport as a destination. So people understand the airport as being something that is part of their city. I love this particular one, the short story vending machine. So if you're standing in a queue, you can decide whether you want a 1 minute, a 3 minute, or a 5 minute short story. And this is a thing that, allows you to take what might be a really kind of boring old moment into something that's quite delightful. You may have seen the sushi on the baggage carousel. So who likes waiting for baggage? No one. But here in Oita Airport, they push out these massive sushi plates, like a sushi train, that allows you to turn what is a fairly boring sort of waiting experience into something that's kind of playful and fun. The other thing that we notice here is that people start talking to each other. So they connect over these experiences, and then they help each other get their bags off the carousel. So, you can actually think about how experiences shift behaviours here. At Amsterdam, the airport actually partners with the Rijksmuseum to showcase the Dutch masters so that you can see an incredible collection of art whilst you're waiting. And there's many, many more examples of these things. Right, so I think I'm on time. This has been it's a lightning talk, so it's a lightning view into thinking about experiences as a system that provides this sort of foundation for all channels. So, I would advocate that organisations, brands and places are defined by the experiences they create. So whether airport or workplace or university, when places perform, people are engaged and use them, right? So they're more attracted, they're more involved, and it creates a sense of belonging or loyalty. Thank you.